there is research that shows that people will underestimate how much they eat and overestimate what they move. That's just by design.
Yeah.
We're going to try to make ourselves
Better.
kind of
we're
we're
trying to make ourselves a Hinge profile when we're really at LinkedIn.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Are you someone who has been in what you think is a calorie deficit, but you are not seeing results? Maybe you are tracking maybe your food after the fact or going to eat out a lot, or a lot of things we're going to talk about today. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to ask the true question, the hard questions. Are you really in that calorie deficit? So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind.
Yeah.
I
guess that's how we both feel about this.
Yes.
Okay.
It can be so frustrating though. And I want to validate your feelings because they're like, I'm doing all the things. I don't understand why I'm not losing weight. Now, I have a client who is getting frustrated because she's seen a lot of her friends go on like all these
drugs.
Yeah. She's like, I don't get it. I'm doing all the things. And now with her, I think just based on some of her like feedback, we might be looking at more the quality of her food, which I'm going to talk about too. And then also I told her like when I'm looking at her tracking for like meals out and stuff, they're definitely the lowest calorie option, unfortunately. And not just for her and a lot of my clients. I'm like, you tracked uncooked rice and you were at PF Chang's. Like, that's not the same.
Yeah.
We are not the same.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. But many women think they're in a calorie deficit. A gal that I follow had talked about how she went to her hormone specialist and was like, well, I don't eat a lot of sugar. I don't drink. And I eat around 2,000 to 3,000 calories. And I'm like, well,
There's
is
a big
it?
difference between
And do you know, or like, have you actually sat and like put your food in?
No.
Because a lot of you think that, well, I don't eat bad, but it's like, but how much you could eat all clean foods and still be in a surplus. People do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Where they have like a clean bulk and they gain weight on purpose. Now, yes, it's not going to be a ton of body fat. So that's where the difference is. So not only are we not losing weight, but maybe we're gaining body fat. We definitely have to look at what our behaviors are and the quality of our food and so many other things.
Yeah.
Really, for us, we use tracking food for those who can mentally handle it. Okay. As an educational like tool.
Yeah. And I don't think if you feel like for example, the client that I'm thinking of right now, she couldn't mentally handle it. And then at some point we started to get into a conversation of it like would be more exact, but I don't care for a client. Like if you want to do your food journal, which is taking pictures of the food and then uploading it to our app, great. If that keeps you more consistent or if it doesn't send you down the spiralizer.
Right.
But she started to want to like, she was like, she started thinking like, maybe I should track calories. So we had a conversation about what does that look like? What does that mean? Like the negatives, positive, pros and cons, trade-offs. And I said, let's do it. You know, if you feel like it's not going well, we could stop.
Right.
And so she started doing it. And then she found it was actually really beneficial for her now. Whereas before it became a restrictive control thing, but now she's in a different mindset of now she's able to look at the food. Then it came into she tracking on vacation. Right. And so she's in maintenance right now. And she's like, well, what if I go over? I said, well, what if you do go over?
Right.
Well, I don't like, what if you do? She goes, it's probably not that big of a deal. No, it's really not.
Right.
And so I checked on her. Actually, I was just reading it before we started. I'm like, how's that? You're tracking on vacation. I'm really proud of you. You know, now if she didn't track on vacation because she felt like it wasn't serving her, I'd be really proud of her of that too.
Right.
And she was like, yeah, it's actually really easy. It's not as like restrictive as I thought it would be. It's actually enlightening.
Yeah. I have a good example for this. If you guys haven't used it or seen it on like Instagram, there's an app called Rocket Money. And the Rocket Money app connects you to all of your, it connects to your credit cards, it connects to your bank accounts, and it tells you how many subscriptions you have that you probably don't even realize you forgot to end that trial or you didn't realize you paid for a subscription. There was something, I bought this dog training, these videos, and I didn't read the fine print. And if I wouldn't have canceled it in a certain amount of time, it would have been like $70 a month. Luckily, I had like seen it right when I hit the like pay button. So I went back and looked at the contract and I canceled it. But tracking food is kind of like that, right? You especially when you have a coach to be able to be like, okay, like you you had a half cup of quinoa, but this is one I love. I saw that post on Instagram about what you actually ate, and there was a glass of red wine in that video. I don't see that here. And it's kind of like the subscription that you don't realize is there.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think when we are tracking too, the importance of how we're tracking. So you talked about cooked, uncooked. You talked about restaurant versus not restaurant.
Yep.
But also more importantly, are we measuring? So are we doing a cup versus an ounce or a gram?
Right.
Like weighing versus measurements, because that's going to totally change your calorie deficit.
Yep.
Because what I think is, so we always love the peanut butter example. What I think is a tablespoon of peanut butter is going to be different. What you think of a tablespoon is different, which is different than what they put on that label.
Correct.
So if you're not weighing what they say, so like on there, it'll say like 15 grams is 1 tablespoon. When I weigh or do the tablespoon and I actually weigh it, it might be 22. Well, is that, 7 grams that big of a difference? No, but 7 times 9, which is your calories for fat, I don't even know what that is. 63. That's 63 calories. And if I'm doing that repeating over and over, that might easily be 500 calories when I'm trying to be in a deficit of 500. And now I'm at maintenance to a surplus.
9 times 7, 63.
I don't know.
No. And again, people are like, but I don't want to do that. That seems so restrictive. Then this isn't for you.
Right.
But then we also have to have realistic expectations because we don't have an account of what is coming in. We don't have data.
Yes.
So when we can do ounces or grams, that's incredibly important.
And
then also, like you said, cooked versus uncooked, eating a meal out. The common mistakes is that people will get false confidence and they'll begin to eyeball things, right? Or, well, I'll talk about the other one, but there is research that shows that people will underestimate how much they eat and overestimate what they move. That's just by design.
Yeah.
We're going to try to make ourselves
better.
Kind of fit
into. We're trying to make ourselves a Hinge profile when we're really at LinkedIn.
Correct. Yes, exactly. We're going to try to make our minds believe we're doing the right thing. Especially if you have someone looking at it. So we see that a lot where they'll almost manipulate it so that it hits the number, even though you're not being truthful and honest to yourself. The other thing is that you don't realize how much those like BLTs, the bites, licks, and tastes add up.
Yeah.
So if I'm having a little bit of my kids' goldfish and then I have the little chunk of their cheese stick, and then I go and I have a Coke, the soda, or another one I see all the time is people don't think calories from alcohol exist.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I had to Jordan Trapp, our friend
Dr.
of the podcast.
Trapp.
She goes, because Dustin's doing keto. And I was like,
my God.
He goes, how many carbs isn't that a low carb beer? I go, there's no carbs in beer. He goes, wait, what? They both go, what? And I go, no, ethanol is the 4th macronutrient. And that's why we call them empty calories. And even they didn't understand that. And I had to explain it to them. But BLT, sorry.
Well, so for example, there was somebody this weekend that was talking and they were talking about intermittent fasting. And I'm like, it's just a caloric deficit. It's nothing. And it's like, well, you can eat whatever you want. Oh, right. But you're still in a caloric deficit.
Yeah.
And
just eating less.
Yeah. So it's like
so
not
silly.
understanding the science of all that.
And we also have to look at like, what are we cooking foods in?
Oh,
so oils, butters, even like marinades. Now, again, I'm trying to say this in a way that supports what we do, because we're not going to be like military on our clients, but at least having a good understanding of it is helpful.
Well, I think, but you kind of have to be semi-military if you're in a caloric deficit to get your goal.
Right. And that's why we are such big proponents of like, are you mentally, physically, and emotionally ready to do this? Because there are trade-offs. And our client, Sarah, I always talk about her on here. She came to me last week. She goes, you know what? I've been looking at my chronometer and I've not even hit this deficit. Now she's losing weight, which is great. She goes, and I just realized like I'm not compromising as much as I think my brain will. I'm not compromising. I want to do all of the things. And I had a realization, like, if you want to hit this goal, you have to make some of these compromises. And Christina is teaching you how to do that. So it's not completely like depriving yourself of the things that you love. And we had that hard conversation, and she brought herself into a higher version of her calorie deficit. Good. She did that on her own. And I told her, I like had the best check-in with her. I go, this is everything. Because when you can hold yourself accountable and audit yourself.
I had a client do this too.
Yes. Yeah. It's like you, sure, boy, we're good.
Yeah.
Like you don't need me anymore because you just became me in that moment.
Yeah.
And that, like, I think about, like we talked about last weekend, I went to that baseball game, and while I, had this plan, I didn't plan for eating afterwards, and we shared things, but then I put them in and I'm like, fuck, that's a 3,500 calorie day. And it was, you guys, there was no overeating by any means. There were drinks involved, so that adds to it too. But like, I was so real with myself when I tracked it. Yes, I tracked after the fact, which I don't love doing. That I was like, well, fuck,
Well, but this goes into too, at 35, you probably were over because you guys ate out as well. Where I see this with clients is they'll track the meals as if they made it at home.
Yes.
But going back to, like, they're not considering the sauces, the butters, the oils that they're cooked in, but they're relying on the restaurant menu or like what's in MyFitnessPal or Chronometer of what's logged. Instead of, honestly, when I tell clients when they go out to eat, I'm like, you have to just bump it up. Like, I don't care what you do. If you think you had we'll say 6 ounces of a steak, make it 6.5 to 7.
Or just add like butter.
Yeah, I said, like, add an automatic 10 grams of butter, just, and they're like, but what if I didn't? How do I know? Doesn't matter, because this is restaurant, and we have to understand that food labels have an incentive to have the least amount of calories in them, because people choose now foods based off of calories, or it's saying high fiber, high protein. They make those choices based off of the marketing. And so it's important for them to make money, right?
I have a little task for our listeners. I want you to look at food labels, and I want you to actually do the math on them, especially ones that say they're like low carb or like net carb, because they're trying
the net carb.
Well, they're trying to say, well, the fiber cancels out the carb.
Which that's not a thing.
That's not how it works. So add it up. Take the protein times 4, the carbs times 4, the fats times 9, and see if the calories that are on that label match that number. Because a lot of, like, I use a lot the Mission Carb Smart tortillas, but I have them in MyFitnessPal under the correct calorie intake, not the calorie intake, because there's 70 grams or 70 calories on the nutrition label, but I think they're 124.
Well, even MyFitnessPal, like, their calorie calculator is off. So like if you actually, like, if you go to your column that says nutrients, and your, like, we'll say protein for the day is 100, carbs for the day is 100, fats for the day is 100, for example. If you calculate that appropriately, it's going to be a different number than what MyFitnessPal gave you too. So that's something to be aware of.
I have my clients just focusing on macros and trying to hit the macros because I noticed personally, I was like, I'm hitting my macros, but it says I have 200 calories left.
Right.
And also turn off the calories burned on your MyFitnessPal.
Yes.
Because what it's doing is saying, oh, you move this much in a day, so you can eat that back.
You earn the calories
You
back,
will eat yourself into a calorie surplus and see weight gain.
So then you're really not in a calorie deficit.
Yeah. The other thing I see is, like, I will go on Mondays, and we're on the West Coast. So some of our clients are almost at lunchtime, and they will have 0 things in their tracker. And I'm like, how are you remembering this? Because you're going to forget shit unless you make the same exact things at the same exact way. Now, can you do that? Absolutely. I do that. But tracking after the fact, and I'm not saying right after. So like if you put it on the scale, you put it in MyFitnessPal, like that's okay. But I'll see people like today who didn't track at all yesterday. And do you think you're going to remember?
No.
Everything? No, you're not going to remember. And I'm guessing there's a reason you didn't put it in the first
place. And I don't want you to try and remember, because then you're going to get obsessive of like, did I add that in? And then like tonight when you go to bed, you're like, shoot, I didn't add in that handful of nuts I had.
Yep.
Like that's where the problem is. And now we're in a surplus. So this is where we talk about how to improve the tracking errors that we see when you're in a deficit. Weigh the food and be honest with it. Then we want to make sure that when we're weighing the food, take that mental note, take like a little snapshot in your head. That way, when you go out to eat, because again, I don't want you to bring your scale when you go out to eat.
No, God.
Like that's disordered eating, and we need a higher level of help. But what I want you to do is be able to say, okay, this is what we'll say 100 grams of cooked white rice looks like.
Right.
So if I go out to eat, maybe I'm going to a stir fry and I see about 4 times what my 100 grams looks like, then I put in 400 grams.
Right.
So that way I can start creating that picture, because a lot of people don't want to track forever either. So keeping that in mind, this is a great way to keep you in check of when we go off tracking as well.
No, I agree. We need to be consistent, most importantly, when we're going over.
Yeah.
Because you need to realize what that actually looks like.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, they'll say, well, I didn't want you to see it. As if it affects me. When you don't track, I don't gain the weight. You do. Yeah. It's still there. So why not show me what happened here? And sometimes you might track over and your weight will stay the same, which actually gives me really good information, because maybe your average calorie intake that week was 1,900, and maybe we can actually see weight loss at 1,900, which we probably, if you're working with us, probably already tried. But just saying, like, if we're seeing weight loss and your average is higher, then why don't I give you more calories? Like, it's to your advantage to do it. Tracking ahead and having a plan. So I have a client who has struggled so much with perfect fail thinking. And I've talked about this cycle on a couple episodes ago. And honestly, she has realized, like, when I just track the things I want ahead of time and create a plan and stick to that plan, it takes away the like that food being on a pedestal, because I'm allowing myself to have it. And I have a plan for it. And it fits in, it creates that balance in her life. And then she's realizing, she's like, and then when I eat it, sometimes I don't even like it. Because I've taken away the emotion involved with it, because I've been like, okay, this is your plan. You're going to have these nutrient dense foods. You're going to have these pleasurable foods. She works very much out of her sustainable eating quadrant. And this is the days we're going to have the Wendy's fries. This is the days where we're going to eat, the food that we created at home or meal prepped, just by making a plan. Yeah. It's taken away a little bit of that guilt and I won't even say guilt, that the food no longer is going to rescue her, because there's nothing to be rescued from. So
next one is, we hear this a lot, is my metabolism. They talk about the metabolism. It's just broken. It's slow.
Well, and that girl that was posting about the 2,000 to 3,000, they put her on the weight loss shot and said, she, I don't know if they said it, but she goes, that'll just help boost my metabolism.
No, it won't.
And I she's very sweet and very open to this. She's like, I'm eyes wide open with this. And I gave her our How to GLP-1 Right
good
to listen to.
Good.
So I go, just to let you know, we're talking about the good and the bad. She goes, that's okay.
Yeah.
So and this has nothing to do with her. She's hiring people that don't sound like they're giving her the right information, because this whole thing is something that's like new and catchy. Right. So let's talk about the truth of metabolic adaptation. Okay. So the truth is that you have maybe always been in a calorie deficit. So you have just not eaten enough. Or you've been in a strict calorie deficit and then you gained it back.
Yeah.
You strict calorie deficit and gained it back. There is research that supports that when we do that, we increase our fat cells in our bodies, because our bodies are like, well, you've starved me, and now I need to have
storage.
More storage in my body just to store that energy, because I've been starved so much. So then when you eat all of the foods, it's storing that as fat for energy later on, when it's basically like preparing for hibernation, right? Like when bears hibernate, they store all the food, right? Because they're not going to eat for 3 months. That's ultimately what the body is doing. I mean, again, in a way that you all hopefully can understand. But what happens is that you are feeding yourself, say you're feeding yourself 1,500 calories, and you've been doing that for so long that the body adjusts. It adapts to not getting the food in that it needs to get. And therefore, your maintenance now becomes that 1,500 calories, because what is actually happening is it's turning off the motors of parts of your body that it doesn't need in that moment.
Yeah.
I've talked about it here before. So growing your nails, like your skin.
Hormones, having a period.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Being fertile.
Right. And so you're just turning off things, and you're not really working from like where everything is firing at once.
Well, and the thought is, like, you're talking about there being in this calorie deficit forever, right? But you're thinking that being in a deficit works forever. Like we shouldn't be in a deficit longer than 12 to 16 weeks at the most, right? But when you're saying, oh man, I've been on a weight loss, like I've been trying to lose this weight for over a year now, to me, that's a red flag. This is where the education is really lacking of, if you have 50 pounds to lose, that's at least 50 weeks in a deficit. And that's if you're losing 1 pound per week.
Right.
That's not even if you're doing half a pound per week, because that might be more sustainable calorie wise. So when we're talking about that, you have to understand that I don't want you in a weight loss phase for 50 weeks, because now your body is going to adapt. Yes, you are right. Your metabolism did essentially slow because of the calories you were giving it, because it wasn't enough. then
it is not broken.
It's not broken. It's smart
adaptation to your behavior that you can change.
And then going into the behavior is when we don't have enough energy, we're going to feel sluggish, right? We're going to feel more tired. So then our NEAT, so just the way we move throughout the day, not even thinking about exercise, because so like we keep saying, exercise is 5 to 10% of your calories burned per day. Now, the rest of the day, you're doing movements, you're eating, you're just
existing. With your hands.
Sorry.
No, that's some.
You're talking with their hands. So those things burn calories, and it's not to say like flutter your hands all day so you burn extra calories. Please don't do that. But it's saying, as the body needs to conserve more energy, it's not going to have you move more throughout the day spontaneously. Maybe you subconsciously decide like, I just won't park a little bit further. Like I'll just park a little bit closer. I'm feeling pretty tired. I'll take the elevator today because I'm feeling just really sore and tired. And so the stairs can wait for tomorrow.
Right.
Like those small changes are also going to change how your metabolism has adapted to lower calories. So therefore, now if you're starting, say your metabolism is at 1,500 calories, but you're in a deficit, quote unquote, of 1,800 calories, now you're in a surplus.
Yep.
So now you're not losing weight.
So what she's saying is if your body has adapted that you don't gain or lose weight at 1,500, those days where you have the 1,800 or the bigger foods, number one, you're putting yourself in a surplus. Number two, your body is also going to store that because it doesn't know when it's going to get the amount of calories that it needs. I've been in maintenance now. God, how long have I been in maintenance?
I've been in maintenance over a year.
Yeah. Like
because
4 months.
I had a baby.
Yeah.
And actually, I just went up on my calories. So, yeah. See?
I was at 2,400 last week.
I meant.
The other thing is when our bodies are not getting the energy that they desire, our natural hormone, ghrelin, which tells us we're hungry, increases because it's like, give me food. And our leptin, which tells us that we're satiated, we're full, decreases. So then once we do get in front of foods, we are super duper hungry and we don't feel satisfied. So this goes into what Amanda likes to say a lot. A lot of you think you're going to say it's metabolic adaptation because you think you're in a calorie deficit. But the fact that you're moving less, your ghrelin and leptin is all screwed up, right? And you're going to naturally just overeat in certain situations. You're actually not in that deficit, but you're going to say that it's metabolic adaptation because that's like a flashy word that people are using. And I tell my clients this, like I have a client right now who is losing weight as we're increasing her calories. You've done it. I've done it. We've done it everywhere with all of our clients. And she's just like, oh my gosh, I did not realize what I was doing to my body. And that she's like, I can't believe I'm going to be eating 1,900 calories and seeing weight loss. And
I'm eating 2,800 calories and I'm seeing weight loss.
Yes. It's amazing. It's amazing. And, yes, metabolic adaptation is a thing, but you guys just think it like is a switch.
Yeah.
It is not.
Correct.
It is if I did not brush my teeth and then be like,
I have gum disease.
Just switched overnight. No. There's behaviors that are involved, which means you actually have control over it.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing though, too, is if we're not in a calorie deficit or we get to a plateau place, which you have a whole conversation on that, is sometimes we just need to chill the fuck out and like eat more. I had a client recently, I think she has Lyme disease. She got bit by a tick.
Did you know that is a conspiracy theory? But did you know that is a lab like leak thing, Lyme disease?
Lab leak? What's
yeah,
a lab
like
leak?
they developed it in a lab.
Well, she said it's more of she's in Canada. So she said it's more of a rule everything out beforehand type of thing. I don't know. She just feels incredibly inflamed and like fatigued.
Yeah.
And she's on like HRT. And finally she's like, I can't do the deficit right now. I was like, I don't think you should do the deficit right now.
Yeah.
We're just in a diet break.
Yeah.
Because she's already feeling fatigued, but whatever's going on in her body, why would I give her less energy through food?
Right.
And I checked in with her today. I'm like, where are you at with that right now? I honestly think that she just needs to like feel good. And my client, he and I, his whole goal working with me is like to increase his muscle strength, but he has other mental things that we need to be working on and him just feeling good.
Yeah.
And so he ultimately is increasing his calories as well. But a diet break is really important when we're feeling tired, when we're seeing lack of progress, where and I'll say this, it's more a mental thing than anything else, because even if you're plateauing on the scale, you're probably not plateauing everywhere else.
Right.
You know, but if we are constantly hungry, we're cold, we have poor recovery,
moody.
Yeah. You don't feel satiated, maybe even. A diet break is a wonderful thing to add in, and you should be adding it in. We add it in either naturally because someone went on vacation, right? Or they had friends in town, or we plan it for them. And so that is a part of the process that a lot of women specifically don't add into it.
Yeah.
They've never learned like, oh, I should actually be giving my body those surges of more, of the food that I need, the energy that I need, which will actually help me in the long run.
Well, and to talk about like ways to improve your metabolism is the diet breaks, right? But also being in maintenance the majority of the time, a lot. So if there's 52 weeks of the year, you want to lose 50 pounds, 50 out of 52 of those weeks, you should not be in a weight loss phase, right? It should be maybe 24 weeks out of the 52, but there's going to be a diet break between those two 12-week intervals of deficit. The other thing is we need to consider reverse dieting before cutting again. So this is one thing that I see a lot with clients that have come on, and just hearing women talk is, I did either a calculator, or I just, use the calculator on the app, or I just
specifically,
or I just know like 2,000 calories. Like they don't know their actual maintenance. And there's a really beautiful thing about finding your maintenance, because that can actually help dictate how much less you have to eat for that weight loss period. So for example, going back to your client who actually bumped up her calories because she was realizing, I could do the 500 calorie deficit, but I'm not being consistent. And I'm seeing weight loss trends at maybe 300 calorie deficit. But if I'm taking my maintenance, so say let's just say my maintenance without breastfeeding and postpartum is 2,800, maybe. So I only need to eat 2,300 or no, 2,800. Yeah, sorry. I only need to eat 2,300 to lose 1 pound per week. Right. Whereas if your maintenance is 2,400 and you want to lose 1 pound per week, Christine has to go to 1,900. But if I go to 1,900, I'm really losing way too much weight, way too fast, and I'm going to be way too hungry.
Right.
So and there's a lot of individual.
Your body will adapt quicker than, because metabolic adaptation ultimately happens because, like what you're saying, like reverse dieting is so important, because where your maintenance was before you lost the weight is not going to be
it's going to be different too. Yeah.
So that is metabolic adaptation technically, right? You adapt it to being in a smaller body, so your body requires less energy, and then finding that is important then too, because if you go back to where you were, you could potentially, and this is what people
be in a surplus. In
a surplus.
Well, and that's what they do. Because I just lost the weight, and then I go back to how I eat.
Yeah.
And that's like this past interaction. It was, I did this before, and it's fine. But then I gained the weight back, so now I'm going back to it. And it's like, well, then you just went back to eating like an asshole.
Right. Don't eat like an asshole. Speaking of eating like an asshole, hidden calories, liquid calories.
Yeah.
I was watching.
These are my favorite to cut out.
A meme, and it was like one of those like 600-pound life. And the lady goes, so what do you guys eat? And they're like telling her, and she goes, okay. And then what else? And they go, sodies. And she's like, well, how many like sodies do you have?
She goes, like a soda?
Soda. And she goes, what kind? Like a Coke? And she goes, yeah, a Diet Coke. And she goes, my mom has said that anytime I eat, if I have a Diet Coke with it, it cancels out the calories.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then the other one, I don't know why I got all these snippets from these shows. So the mom's like, I feed her proper portions, and she's like 600 to 700 pounds. And she goes, the only thing that I can think of is honey mustard. And the doctor goes, are you giving her the whole gallon of honey mustard? Because there's something happening here. Because the mom was small too, which was weird. Anyway,
so weird.
Hidden calories. Alcohol counts.
Yep.
And y'all think your espresso, I tell you this all the time, those espresso martinis, add 200. Aperol spritz, add 200. You want an IPA? Add 200. I had a great client who, I need to check on her. She was pregnant. I got to check on her actually. Who loves IPAs, and she would do like those strong IPAs. And Yeah. And she was like, fuck, man, like 250 calories each. I'm like, yes, ma'am. Yes, they are.
Not even that, like the juices, like the nectar juices and all that. Like those have calories in it. Because I remember one time I went and I was like, I'll get like a green juice. And I logged it, or I found it on the MyFitnessPal or something. And it was like 200 and something calories. I was like, for a freaking juice? Like, I might as well have a snack, like an actual food.
Correct.
Right. So like these smoothies that we're getting, those have 200
Skinny
to 500.
vanilla latte is like 160 for venti.
So, but even considering that your skinny vanilla, so targeted skinny vanilla latte still has calories. Correct. If you're not including that, then you're not in a deficit, because say you have 2 of those a day, right? Then you're measuring your food. You're easily back at your 500 calorie kind of deficit number that you were hoping for.
Yeah. I think that's important. Like, just how easy it is to get yourself out of a deficit. Like, again, so you have your kid's cheese stick, or you have a cheese stick with your kids. Yeah. You have
handful of your goldfish.
Handful of goldfish.
You got your Starbucks. Starbies.
You got a skinny vanilla Starbies, right? And then you didn't track the almonds that you ate.
Or you did like a handful of almonds. You think it's a half a cup, but it's like actually like
3 cups, or like
what's it called?
Cup and a half.
Yes.
Yeah. So things like nuts, seeds, peanut butter, as you talked about, even some of the more processed foods, it's designed for you to overeat it. That's why it's such a booming business out there. So you think that you're eating, and I do this with Golden Grams all the time. I'm like, oh, that was 28 grams. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. That wasn't 28 grams. That was like 50. You better put it in as 50, which I do. We already talked about dining out. So one thing that I like our clients to do, and I've said this on here before, is use Nutrition X, because they have the calories from all the restaurants that have their nutrition online. Now, it doesn't have to be exact, because it won't be exact. Correct. But if you go to a mom and pop shop that has a fish fry, there's a restaurant in this universe that has nutrition facts for a fish fry. Use that. Use that instead of grandma's fish fry that they bake in the air fryer. Yeah. Don't do that.
Well, and even I see, like, this was something I used to do, is like trading out like the healthy substitutes, the clean foods for like the other. So like, for example, a pie. So instead of just having the pie, I would go and get like a paleo pie, which the crust is actually like cashews and almonds with dates to make it like sticky. Yeah. And then coconut cream for the pie part. That's actually probably more calories than just having the pie.
Yes.
But I was like so hell bent on having like the clean version that it was putting me in a surplus. Yep. So watch out for the healthy stuff too, because that is, again, marketing, but too, like, understanding the way they make it is probably more calorie dense than just the technically unhealthy process way.
Also, just, I will eat, the big things of blueberries I can eat in one
thing. I love blueberries.
I can eat them in one thing. That's fly.
I'm telling you, it's it's probably my milk.
Gotcha. So give me some of that. Yeah. And when I do that, I mean, I'm putting myself in a surplus, even though it's blueberries. Now I have to eat a lot of them, and I will, because I love them. Yes. But yeah. I really enjoy dried apricots.
I like dates.
Oh yeah, dates are good too. But like one dried apricot is 77 calories.
That's like one date, and it's like I forget the calories. I want to say 70 as well, but then like 16 grams of sugar.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I was and that's something they recommend for pregnancy, like to eat to help ripen the cervix. And they're like, have 7 to 8. I'm like 7 to 8. Like times 16. So talking about hidden calories, how do we improve like the thought of the hidden calories? So one is we can make easy swaps. Yep. So looking at the label, but like maybe instead of just regular pasta, we have protein pasta. So we know there's calories in it, but let's have some protein calories more than just carbs. Using spaghetti squash. So if we're in a calorie deficit, using spaghetti squash instead of regular pasta, right? Because that's lower calorie. You can have a lot more of it.
Right.
With
higher volume.
Yes. The other,
you can also have the pasta too.
Also calorie deficit, just because it's salads are perceived as healthy. Sometimes salads have the most calories on the menu. So just because it's healthy or perceived healthy doesn't mean it's going to be deficit worthy, or what am I thinking? Like deficit.
Well, some people will like get a salad, but then have like ranch, like true ranch,
and croutons.
Like right. And like that and then will take you.
It's like lettuce with no calorie, like it's just no nutritional value. Yeah. And then they get the fried chicken on it because they figure it evens it out.
So let's talk about that. So for lunch today, I'm making the chicken breasts or chicken nuggets from Costco.
Oh, I have for my snack on my way here.
Yeah. Romaine cucumbers, carrots, tomatoes, Bolthouse dressing, and the G. Hughes sugar-free barbecue sauce. So I just took that salad that you said and made swaps to it. Also thinking about too, and this is something that I talk with my clients, and this isn't necessarily about hitting calories, but like the calorie deficit in general, like if that salad's not satisfying and you're just going to end up in the pantry anyways, then fucking eat something else.
Don't have the salad.
Right. And then plan ahead. I filmed myself yesterday planning my week. I filmed my screen and I'm going to put it together for you guys, because if you have a meal that you eat often and it's satisfying, add it as a meal. And if you don't have a Premier, buy it. I know you can make
meals without Premier.
Okay, great. So add it as a meal, save it. So then when you go to plan your week later, I know I have my 3 breakfasts from this week. I have turkey sausage, 2 eggs, sweet potato, feta cheese. I have Kodiak cakes, 15 grams of chocolate chips, 8 ounces of egg whites, 20 grams of cheddar cheese. What did I do the last day? I don't remember what I did. Those were already meals. So then I put those in. And then for the other 3 or 4 days, I just copy from date.
Yeah. Copy from Monday
yes.
to Thursday. Copy from.
Yes. It's going to take time to kind of build
your library.
That library. But once you have it,
it's so easy.
Or take an hour of your day instead of being on social media and like put that shit in and save it, or go back. Here's the easiest thing. Go back and look at your previous weeks and be like, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that. Boom. Save it as a meal. Mine says chicken nugget or chicken tendy salad. And you having a plan. Now, here's the thing. You have a schedule for work for your meetings, right? But you have time in between just in case you need to talk to someone or get some things done. That's the same thing with your food plan. You're going to have this plan in place, but if things need to be moved around, it's much easier to reduce a portion. Or like last night, I got hungry after I was podcasting and I had some pita and hummus. So then I just changed our dinner to something we already had, which was just veggies, quinoa, and steak, where we were going to do, normally there's a store here that has really good meatballs. So we do meatballs with like whole wheat pasta. And that's like a 610 calorie meal for me, whereas the other one is like 450. So it ended up balancing out. But I was just able to move 2 meals instead of have to remember 6 meals, right? Because I do 3 meals. Well, 3 meals and 2 snacks. So 5 meals. All right. For those stuck in the fat loss phase, be aware of all or nothing mentality. So obviously the mindset, we want to focus on long term. Here's the thing, you've already spent and wasted years trying to do it your way. If you do it our way, saying, I'm going to dedicate, 2 years to this. I'm going to have diet breaks. I'm going to work on some of these things that I do to falsely convince myself that I'm in a calorie deficit and actually work on being in a calorie deficit. Then after that year, 2 years, you'll create a foundation underneath yourself, just like my client who was able to audit herself and say, wait a minute, I'm not doing this right. And you don't need us anymore, right? But you want it to be a quick fix, and that's not how it works. The other thing is finding
non-scale victories. Yeah. So that I was just thinking like, oh yeah, I could get someone to lose weight 50 pounds in 2 years. We could definitely do that.
Oh yeah.
But then I thought, I could probably get them to look better and not worry about the scale with the progress pictures and just by tweaking some other things.
Oh yeah.
So, focusing on non-scale victories, focusing on measurements, progress pictures, how you feel, how clothes are fitting, your energy levels, your relationships, your moodiness, maybe your hormonal levels too.
Yeah.
Like blood work.
Even your thought process, and like the episode we talked about, like common weight loss, like issues that people have once they lose weight, like getting in front of those too.
Yes.
And a lot of these non-scale victories will help you with that, and really focusing on consistency, right? Instead of perfection, like figuring out how to make this work into your lifestyle instead of trying to make your lifestyle work into a diet.
Yeah.
It has failed you over and over again. But also working on like, again, that kind of, look, I'm tracking perfectly, coach. When I see that, honestly, I see it often as a red flag.
To track perfect, or like orthorexia or lying.
Both. Yeah. And I don't want to believe my clients are lying to me. And I really very much check myself as a coach to be like, okay, what am I making up about this?
We need to do an episode about that. And I put it in our notes of coaches making up stuff about the clients.
All right. So to wrap this up, tracking errors can definitely add up. We need to be honest, accurate, and consistently incorrect. What does that mean?
So
the phrase.
So meaning like, for example, if I always track like 3 grams of butter and I know what it looks like, then I'm consistently doing it. And it doesn't mean I need to weigh 3 grams of butter every time.
Mm-hmm.
So am I incorrect? So maybe sometimes I get 4, sometimes I get 2, but overall average is on 3.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore I'm not correct, but I'm consistently incorrect. Or for example, when I go out to, say I go to Hula's, which is a restaurant here every Friday,
mm-hmm.
and I log my meals. Is it exactly imperfect how it is? No. But I'm consistently logging it how I eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's incorrect technically, but I'm consistent with it.
Right.
Not meaning I'm skimming off the top.
Right.
I'm probably overdoing it. I'm saying like 10 grams of butter, 100 grams of rice, this and that. And I make sure I fluff it. Is it correct? No, it's incorrect, but I do it consistent.
Mm-hmm. Don't always be on a diet. We need to have diet breaks.
Mm-hmm.
We need to just mentally give mentally get off the diet and physically give our bodies what it needs. And remember, these hidden calories can literally sabotage your calorie intake. Very, very much so. One thing we didn't talk about is like food quality too. Like, again, we touched on it. Processed foods, even if they're healthy foods, are going to make you want them. You're naturally going to overeat them.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas when we can have colors and high fiber foods, that's going to be super helpful, especially for some of you who do go into a calorie deficit and maybe you're struggling because you've done this so many times that now we are dealing with something like insulin resistance, where we now have to look at the timing of our food, the quality of our food. This is a conversation top of mind. And, obviously the calorie deficit on top of that, that's another conversation. But what we're trying to do is avoid that with teaching you guys this. Actions for you guys: audit tracking for a week. Put everything in. If you're a client who wants to do this, real deal, we're going to do it in my MyFitnessPal and the food journal. I want to see what it looks like. And then I want you to put it in for me. And I want to see if there's any discrepancies.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for, right? Are we including the oils? Are we tracking back exercise? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Are you weighing your food instead of measuring your food?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is honestly asking yourself, have you really been in a fat loss phase? Yeah. Like taking all of this, taking your notes and looking at what we've talked about, auditing your food, looking back if you already have, and saying, wait, have I actually been in a fat loss phase?
Mm-hmm.
Then, even if you have been, but you see your kind of overindulgence days, which lead into your overindulgence Friday, leads into overindulgence Saturday, Sunday, reset Monday, you're going to find that pattern. Ask yourself, even if I haven't technically been in a deficit, have I mentally been trying to? Mm-hmm. Have I mentally been trying to finagle my eating, whether I'm tracking or not, so that I am in a deficit maybe every Monday, or maybe every first of the month, or maybe every new month, or every year? Yeah. Because that's a different output of what you're going to get with your body.
One thing we didn't touch on too is your movement.
Mm-hmm.
Is, say I have a client, again, this is top of mind. I have a client who I've designed her deficit to be 4 workouts a week.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes down to 0 to 1, and that's consistent over time. That is also going to affect it. So you do need to look at movement as well. Or if and again, that's more like long-term. So I'm looking at like 4 weeks, 6 weeks with the movement. That's also something to take into consideration. But just to close it up, consider new behaviors for sustainability, like our sustainable eating quadrant is a great place to look, because that's going to give you foods that you both enjoy that also provide those nutrients in your body. Looking at how to plan ahead using the resources that we've taught you here with MyFitnessPal, and continue to give us a follow on Instagram, Mindset Mirror Connection Podcast, but also our personal Instagrams, Mindset Coaching and fitbyamanda.az, because we share a lot of what we do or what we teach our clients. So if you're not sure, just like or follow us on all areas, YouTube as well. And that way you can learn, because I'm going to start a series, as I mentioned, called Booked and Busy, how I eat, because I'm fucking busy. Now, I don't have children. I get it. But I have a baby called this fucking business.
Yeah.
That sometimes she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, working.
I know.
Why do you ask that question? What are you doing? Yeah. Nursing. Okay. Yeah, that's true. So, good. Share this with anyone that would be helpful. Or if you're a coach out there, share it with your community. And if you like this information, we love 5-star ratings and reviews. We haven't had a review in a while. Come on, guys. Yeah.
Wow.
We have such loyal people that listen to us, I know listen to us. Please, I ask you, just review us. Say, great podcast. 2 words. Take you 2 minutes. And if you're interested in coaching with us to help you with these things, check out the show notes below. It'll link you to our website where you can look at all the things we do because I just updated it. Yay. And other than that, we want to leave you with this one last thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror.
Yay.